For the last few chapters, we proved the timing works. Your phone can sync perfectly to a satellite 36,000 kilometers away, but we quietly assumed something enormous, that the signal even arrives. Think about that distance, a phone in your pocket, radiating about the power of a dim light bulb, trying to reach an object farther away than any mountain, any horizon, any aircraft. By the time that signal arrives, it is almost unimaginably faint. This is the link budget, and for geostationary satellites, it is the hardest link in all of 5G. Let's do the accounting and see how it's even possible. First, the villain, path loss. As a radio wave spreads out from an antenna, its energy fans across an ever-expanding sphere. Double the distance, and the same power is smeared over 4 times the area. This is free space path loss, and there's a clean formula for it. In decibels, it's 20 times the log of the distance, plus 20 times the log of the frequency, plus a constant. Plug in a geostationary satellite, 35,786 kilometers, at around 2 gigahertz, and you get roughly 190 decibels of loss. Now decibels are logarithmic, so let that sink in. 190 decibels means the signal arriving at the satellite is weaker than what left your phone by a factor of 10 to the 19th power. 10 billion times fainter. A terrestrial cell tower a kilometer away might see 100 or so decibels of loss. The satellite link piles on far, far more. That is the mountain we have to climb. So how do we possibly close a gap that huge? With a ledger, a link budget is just an accounting sheet, in decibels. You start with the transmit power boosted by antenna gain, and that combined figure is called EIRP, the effective radiated power. From that, you subtract the path loss and a few smaller penalties, the atmosphere, rain, scintillation as the signal punches through the ionosphere, and a little loss for imperfect polarization. Whatever is left is the power actually arriving. Then you add the receiver's antenna gain and compare against the noise floor to get your signal-to-noise ratio. If that ratio clears the minimum the modulation needs, plus a safety margin, the link closes. And here's the secret to how satellites win. On the space side, the numbers are gigantic. A satellite's antenna can be enormous, with huge gain, and it transmits with very high EIRP. Its receiver is exquisitely sensitive. That massive gain on the satellite side is what pays off the 190 decibel debt. The network brings the muscle, so your little handset doesn't have to. But the satellite can only do so much. Look at your side of the link, the handset, and the picture is brutal. A phone's antenna is tiny, with essentially no gain, call it 0 decibels, and its transmit power is capped, by the standard and by your battery, at about 200 milliwatts, 23 dBm, what's called power class 3. That is all you get to fight 190 decibels of loss. So the margin on a handheld is razor thin, and a thin margin has a direct consequence. A low data rate. You can only use the most robust, lowest-order modulation, which carries very few bits. This is exactly why direct-to-satellite on an ordinary phone means texting, short messages, emergency SOS, and low-rate voice, not video streaming. If you want real broadband from a satellite, you don't use a pocket phone. You use a VSAT, a fixed terminal with a big, high-gain dish that claws back tens of decibels the handset simply can't. The physics doesn't care how clever the protocol is. A small antenna is a small antenna. 2 more tricks make the handheld case survivable. First, frequency. Remember, path loss climbs with frequency, so satellite access to phones deliberately uses lower bands. The service link, satellite to your phone, sits in L-band and S-band, around 1.5 to 2 gigahertz. These are the release 17 NTN bands, and lower frequency means less path loss and less rain fade. The feeder link, satellite to the ground gateway, can use much higher K-band, because a big gateway dish can afford it. Second, polarization. As a signal passes through the ionosphere, its polarization gets twisted, an effect called Faraday rotation. If you used simple vertical or horizontal polarization, you could lose the signal entirely as it rotates. So NTN uses circular polarization, which stays receivable no matter how it's twisted on the way down. Small choices, but they're the difference between a link that closes and one that doesn't. And this is the deepest reason the whole industry is racing to low Earth orbit. Path loss depends on distance, and a low Earth satellite is only around 600 kilometers up, versus 36,000 for geostationary. That is roughly 60 times closer. Run it through the formula, and a low Earth link sees on the order of 35 decibels less path loss than GEO. 35 decibels is not a small tweak, it's thousands of times more signal. That is the margin that finally lets an ordinary, unmodified phone close a real link, which is exactly what direct-to-cell constellations are built on. Of course, nothing is free. Getting that close means the satellite is screaming across the sky, so you inherit brutal Doppler and constant handovers, the problems we'll tackle when we get to LEO. Closer is easier on the link budget, and harder on absolutely everything else. So, the link budget. Free space path loss to geostationary orbit is a staggering 190 decibels. The satellite pays most of that debt with a huge antenna and high radiated power. Your handset survives on a razor-thin margin, which is why it's text and voice, not streaming, unless you upgrade to a fixed dish. Lower bands and circular polarization keep the handheld link alive, and moving to low Earth orbit buys back the margin that makes direct-to-cell possible. Timing, access, throughput, and now the raw physics of the link that completes transparent geostationary NTN. Next, everything changes. We put the base station on the satellite itself. That's regenerative NTN. Subscribe to RANspace.